Roxo Media House.
Welcome into Dissecting the Frogs, presented to you by Play Action Pools. Go ahead and get your own pool. And honestly, Dave, I am slacking right now. But you know who's not slacking? Your TCU Horned Frogs.
That's right. That is right. Another win, 8-0, and a tough place to play out there in Morgantown.
Oh, yeah. We talked about how maybe an 11 a.m. game would have been the best scenario for Morgantown, and turns out it was. And Sonny Dykes had a couple things to say about the game.
Yeah, you know, he mentioned, look, they didn't play their best. They acknowledged that. But when you look at it, and I think he said something similar to this, but when you look at any championship level team or championship level season, you have to win about 2 or 3 games that you just don't play your best football, right, in order to do that. And I think that's what the Frogs did. They found a way to win. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. They found a way to win on a tough road game in conference, and they come back home now. This week, of course, versus Texas Tech.
Oh, and that's going to be a tough one. But we've heard all season long the Horned Frog players been saying that they haven't yet put together a full 4 quarters of football. So I think it's really cool to hear both sides just in sync, thinking that they have a really high standard for themselves. And it's really fun to watch, to think this might not even be the best football TCU football can play. But as we said, a win in Morgantown, and we're going to go ahead and break that one down for you when we get back.
Tight end to the left of this formation, Wiley, 2nd and 3. Duggan, play action, looking Wiley's way. With time, got a man releasing late. It's Johnston. Quentin makes the grab. 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown. Quentin Johnston.
TCU at this point down 14-7, and this play should look pretty familiar to Frog fans. Earlier in the game, we saw this score our first touchdown with Tay Barber, and now we get to see it with Quentin Johnston. Dave, how is TCU getting past these safeties?
Yeah, Maggie, earlier on the Tay Barber touchdown reception, he actually got matched up with a linebacker. They had motion, they were an empty, they motioned to a quads look, and this was a little bit different. He got matched up on a middle linebacker, which he's going to beat 10 times out of 10. This time here, the safety was responsible. You can see West Virginia's lined up in sort of a 2 shell, so a cover 2 look. But this free safety, when you have trips to the side, generally in this coverage, he's going to play 3 vertical. If number 3, which is Quentin Johnston in this case, goes vertical at all, he has him. Okay, if he goes underneath, he passes it off to the linebackers. TCU does a really nice job in play action here to suck these linebackers up to get behind those guys. So that second level of the defense really wasn't a factor in this at all. They do a nice job sending Jared Wiley into the flat, so the corner has flat responsibilities. He takes this one here. Now, this is where I think West Virginia made a little bit of a mistake. Instead of staying back in that back pedal position, eyeing number 3, okay, from this safety position, he tried to creep up to take Quentin, okay, earlier and sort of collision that route. What he does was he gets too close and gets spun around, trips up, and now Quentin's completely by himself. He gets all the way over to the opposite numbers. And as I'll show you on film, you know, they did a similar thing with Quentin Johnston last week, and he was able to show the same deep cross and now get up vertical to the opposite numbers. The twist up front, really they try to do with a 2-gap remove here and take this 4-eye technique, this guy lined up here, and he was going to be the contained player. As we'll see on film in a second, as Coker engages with this one, it leaves a path for this one here. Again, Kendre Miller does a phenomenal job. All of these running backs have done a great job, okay, either scanning for their protection or when someone pops free, in which this case it does, Kendre comes off the play action, throws himself in there, and gets just enough to keep Max Duggan, give him plenty of time, keep him upright. He delivers a strike. It's over the shoulder to Quentin Johnston. He made it a little bit more difficult than it needed to be, but obviously a phenomenal talent. He's able to take that and just walk in untouched for a touchdown. So it was a big one for the Frogs. It's another big play for your TCU Horned Frogs.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into this one. Dave, right here, are we looking at blown West Virginia coverage, or are we just seeing a really explosive TCU?
Yeah, a little bit of both. We start off, last week, Quentin Johnston, as you know, Maggie, scored that touchdown on that deep crossing route that we talked about. This week, they try to present the same route, and Coach Dykes referred to this as a railroad route. Well, here looked like it's a deep cross, and then he'll work his way vertical up the numbers. And so if you look at the coverage, though, we'll go back to that for West Virginia. It's more of a cover 2 look, okay, but TCU lines up in trips to the right, and that nub tight end on the backside, Jarrett Wiley. So typical cover 2, you would have 2 safeties on the hash. You'd have 2 corners playing the flat. Okay, but for this one with trips, we have this corner in the flat. Okay, so he's playing down here. This safety here, he's got his own technique called railroad. He should be playing in the middle of these 2 vertical routes. Okay, these 2 vertical routes here, and then leaning on the number 2 receiver. So leaning on the inside, because the harder throw for the quarterback to make is the outside throw, right? Obviously a lot further to travel. So that takes care of that side. On the back side, this is normally a high safety, but when you have trips like this, then he keys number 3, which is Quentin Johnson. He's a number 3 receiver. So he's got him, if he goes vertical. If Quentin just went underneath right away, he would pass it off to the linebackers. Okay? So we're rolling here. The odd thing for West Virginia is this safety starts creeping down to kind of get a jump on Quentin, but really this hurts him, right? It hurts the safety. As you can see, we'll let this thing roll. He gets spun around and then trips up, right?
Yeah.
And so really, had he just stayed back closer to the hash with his eyes on number 3, had Quentin went vertical, he'd be in much better position to play him, right? On this side here, this corner is still and is playing his flat, okay, responsibilities, and they send Jared Wiley into the flat right here. That takes him out of the picture. It's really smart by TCU here and really nice design. And so as soon as he goes flat, now there's nobody in this area. This safety we already saw trips up, and now Quentin Johnson is off to the races. And, you know, when you take a look, he makes a tough catch. He's wide open, but it's over the shoulder. And bobbles it just a little bit, and obviously, you know, with his skill set, is able to take it all the way down. The last thing I want to show quickly here, you know, Drew, that the stunt that they had going on the board, you can see a good picture of the right tackle, Coker, here, who engages. And so when he engages, okay, this defensive end really should have went all the way around. He's a contained player, but because they're engaged here, he slips up underneath, and you do a great job by Kendra Miller here, who is scanning the defense. None of his linebackers blitz, and so he helps out, throws himself in there on defensive lineman, which is not an easy thing for a running back to do.
Definitely not.
We just catch our breath on that one. There's so much going on for the big touchdown here for the Frogs, but an exciting play, really nice design, Maggie, and a nice job playing off of some of your success from the previous week. You know, just keep building. That offensive game plan just keeps building.
Absolutely, and we saw that safety get tripped up, you know, in that first shot right there. So are you telling me with all this ample time that Max has, do you think maybe if he would have followed back like you're saying he should do, that wouldn't have been his read on the play?
Yeah, so, well, he would have had him, but he would have been a much better technique, right? You know, because he could stay back and would have pedaled with his eyes on Quentin Johnson. As he's pedaling, if he sees him vertical, he can stay in his pedal and be in much better position. Because he tries to collision it almost, he gets spun around, and that's why he trips up. It works out for the Frogs, but you know, they're just staying one step ahead of these defenses, and it's paying off.
Absolutely. I'm sure they'll be talking about that in their film session this week. And what we're going to be talking about next, TCU defense. Stay with us.
Johnson at running back to throw the football. Daniels hit as he let go of it. It's incomplete. Now, was this a forward-moving arm or not? Frogs have picked it up. The whistle hasn't blown. And a huge...
Right here, still in the second quarter, there is a ton of pressure on West Virginia's quarterback, JT Daniels. Dave, what are the Frogs doing in this one?
Yes, Maggie, definitely a lot of pressure on JT Daniels here, and he really didn't see this one coming, which caused the turnover, and the Frogs were able to capitalize on it. But I want to start from the beginning. You know, in this blitz here, this is Trey Hodges-Tomlinson here. He looks like he's in man technique or press man. This receiver had, we'll see it on film here in a minute, he had an idea that it was going to be a corner blitz, and in fact, it was. And so he's locked in as if it's man technique. He takes off on a blitz. And normally in that coverage, they'll roll that way. And so this safety will roll the top, it'll roll down the middle, and they'll play sort of a three cloud, which we'll get into that on film as well. I think this is where it got interesting here. The Frogs played man-free coverage, but they banjoed between these two backs. And what that means is when you banjo coverage is if guys are close by, you're playing them man, but whoever comes to your side first, you're going to switch it off. So it's almost like switching a pick in basketball. When you think of it in those terms, they'll banjo the coverage. So when he comes out here, he's actually got this guy man-to-man, but once he goes inside, this linebacker pushes, he takes the back. So now they free release with this blitz. He doesn't pick it up. This ball, honestly, had JT Daniels known that it was coming, Okay, had he been alerted and it got communicated to him, my guess is he would have dumped it off to the back. Okay, but he had no clue. He's able to get rocked on this one here from this side. Okay, they bring D. Winters. He looks like he's blitzing off the edge. They bring him underneath late, and so they got a 5-man pressure here, and they really started to get after him in a key situation for the Frogs once again.
What a play for JT Daniels, and not in a good way, but a good way for the TCU defense. Dave, you talked about some different blitz and coverages over there on the board. Let's go ahead and talk this one out here.
Yeah, so typically when you get this weak cat blitz over here, this weak corner fire on this side, generally they'll play some type of 3-cloud look, okay? And what that is you get this guy rotating over this side, he'll rotate over, you get this guy rotate down the middle, he'll bail on this corner, and you've got, again, 3-cloud, and we've talked about that coverage. But what the Frogs do here is they also bring, in addition to Hodges Tomlinson from his corner spot on the blitz, they also bring D. Winters from this side. Okay, so now it's a 5-man pressure when you include the defensive line, and they play man-free, which, Maggie, you and I have talked a lot about that coverage here on Dissecting the Frogs. And as we know, and I know you know as well, as you've tuned in, it's man coverage underneath with the high safety up top, taking away the post or anything deep down the middle. Okay, so that's what the Frogs decided to do here. They changed it up a little bit on this blitz, which is they do a really great job. So we'll let it run through, and then with the speed of Hodges and Tomlinson, he does, of course, does a great job with the strip sack here.
Absolutely. And could Daniels have seen this coming, or was he completely blindsided?
Yeah, that's a great question because he was blindsided. But if you take a look at his receiver right here, he's pointing to Hodges Tomlinson right now, saying, he's coming, he's going to blitz. That obviously doesn't get communicated back to JT Daniels, which is a huge problem. But, had he done that, and how does the receiver know? Well, he sees Hodges Tomlinson playing inside leverage with his eyes. You can see his helmet looking into the backfield. You see this player starting to creep over this way as well. So the receiver says, okay, I've been coached up to know that there's a good chance that the corner's going to blitz here, and I'm going to get coverage rolling over the top of me. So he's trying to communicate that to Daniels, too little, too late. And so now you get a free rusher here. The back releases. And, of course, he doesn't see it coming, and it's good news for the Frogs.
Absolutely. And I think it kind of just symbolizes a little bit of Halloween right here. They were playing into some spookiness. It's like when they tell you not to go to the basement, your friend goes anyways. That's how it ended here for Daniel.
It's something like that.
Something like that. Just, connecting the dots, football,
No,
31st.
That's
Let's
right.
go. Hear about it.
That's right. No, and it was a huge play. Obviously, for these guys, it was a big play in the game. They did rule it a fumble, and the Frogs came up with a possession, and they needed it.
How exactly did this fumble happen?
Yeah, so the last thing I want to take a look at, if you look at the defensive line or edge rushers, and you go over to practice, they're constantly working the quarterback's hand, right? So they're putting their near hand to the quarterback's throwing arm, right? And so every drill that they finish, they have that reach, and they're reaching for the ball. Well, at corner, Hodges Tomlinson's not practicing that. He's practicing man technique. He's practicing, ball skills, all kinds of things at corner, but not this. So this is really intuitive from him. If you watch him here, he's going to stretch at the very end of this play. He's going to reach that arm, and he comes down on the quarterback's throwing arm to cause the fumble. So really intuitive by him, and a great job to maximize his speed. So when he does arrive, he's able to cause and create the takeaway.
Yeah, and this one ends 3 plays and a score to take the lead. And when we come back, we're going 31 seconds until halftime, and the Frogs get a score.
Back Amani, left-hand side, gets the carry. Amani Bailey inside the 20, inside the 10, to the 5, touchdown. Wow, how about this? Amani Bailey, the junior transfer from Louisiana.
And 31 seconds left in the first half, and Amani Bailey basically goes untouched. How did West Virginia let this one up, Dave?
Well, Maggie, West Virginia was in sort of more of a prevent mode. They were all back, and we talked about this with Jamie Plunkett on Facing the Frogs and said, look, the Horned Frogs really need to spread this defense out and create a 3-1 box, which they do here, okay, which is really nice. There's 31 seconds to go in the half, and West Virginia really wasn't expecting the run, but it's really smart by the Frogs. Have an extra timeout, and in NCAA football, if you get a first down, the clock stops long enough for them to set the ball. So it's really a lot of time in college football. And so, as you see, they hand it off to Amani here. They do a great job. This one's spread out. He's kind of splitting the difference. He's apex, so he's splitting the difference between the end man line of scrimmage and this number 2 receiver who happens to be Tay Barber. And so Tay does a great job bypassing this one, blocking the safety. These guys do a great job pushing all the way out to this one. They double team here. They get this one on the backside, and it's really simple football, a simple zone play. It's nice when you only have 4 guys to block, of course, up front, but the key blocks really came from the wide receiver positions. I want to see that on film, but Amani does a really nice job staying vertical on this thing and not looking to make too many moves. He sticks his foot in the ground, gets vertical, and he ends up almost hitting his head on the goalpost after this one. Right before the half, this was critical for the Horned Frogs to make sure they stayed on top and kept the momentum going, and also keep doing a good job before they end halves. They're really finishing the half strong, which all good football teams do.
Right here, new guy on the block, Amani Bailey, and you talked a little bit about the blocking over there on the board. I'm seeing some receivers back here. What's going on?
Yeah, complete team effort for the Horned Frogs here. And take a look at Tay Barber. Believe it or not, he doesn't just score touchdowns, right? He does other things.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is all coordinated. When you go in the blocking scheme, he knows at his receiver position that the line of scrimmage is responsible for this one here. So when he releases, you're going to see him bypass that one intentionally and then come in and block this middle safety here. So they've got that one accounted for, which is a big deal. If you go back and look, like I said on the board, we talked about this on Facing the Frogs, said, hey, if they can get this defense into a 3-1 box, which they do here, this is the only guys, they have 4 guys that really need a block inside the box, then they're in good shape. And so, they had one timeout left, the Frogs did, and so they let's run the football, kind of catch them off guard a little bit, and they do that. But the other guy I want to note here is Jordan Hudson, the true freshman. I mean, this guy right here is playing to win, right? This is a guy who's playing to win. He uses great technique. He sinks his hips, okay? And he actually takes 2 for 1 there, so he takes out 2 guys.
Crazy hit,
It
man.
is, and look, Maggie, this is a guy that is, a true freshman trying to work his way on the field. He's super talented. He has all these elite receivers really in front of him, right? Older guys that are doing a tremendous job. But if you want to get on the field more, your quickest way at receiver is actually not with the ball in your hands. It's with plays like this.
Be a
right?
team player.
Yeah, that's right. And you're exactly right. Be a team player. Get out there and sacrifice yourself. Be unselfish. And plays like this will do it.
Absolutely. And obviously the other guy who's been waiting his turn, Amani Bailey. Oh my, 30-yard touchdown. Talk to me about him.
Yeah, so tremendous job by him. But not, I think people who saw Amani in camp or saw him when he was at the University of Louisiana, this is a really talented back. He opened a lot of eyes during camp, scored a lot of touchdowns. And that's typical, during football camp, your first back isn't going to carry the load. Yeah. You got to know what you're going to get from Kendre Miller. But the way Miller and DeMarcado are playing right now, it's just tough to get on the field. It's nothing that Amani Bailey is doing wrong necessarily at all. In fact, he's done a great job. You see him in practice. He practices with high tempo and energy and is really talented. And so he gets his opportunity. He was ready for it, and he made the most of it. And so happy to see it for a guy who's really done a nice job. And I think he's going to have many more of these opportunities going forward. He never knows when it's going to come.
Absolutely, and all these players just working together, really showing off the depth of this TCU team. And talking about a next man up mentality, it's that character and that culture that the Sonny Dykes squad and staff has instituted into these players. And when we come back, a lot more of good character and great winning culture coming up in the 4th quarter.
2nd and 10. Daniels hands it off. Anderson. Frogs had him. He slips down at the 13-yard line. Loss of the play.
Once again, critical plays exactly where they need them. It's 4th quarter, and the Frogs need this play to stay ahead and overall win this game. Dave, what are they doing here?
Yes, Maggie, it certainly was a big play on 2nd and 10. Ultimately took them to 3rd and 13 after a 3-yard loss, and then they had to punt it away on 4th down. And I think this was a big shift here at the end of the game for the Frogs to end up sealing the victory. And so really simple outside zone play by West Virginia. But you're going to take a look at Jamoy Hodge, who just shot the gap right away. And, we're going to get really into this on film and what he saw. If you look at this right guard from West Virginia, but as soon as he went flat, Jamoy knew he could take this, and he shot the gap right now. But really, the play starts out here with D. Winters getting over the top, setting a strong edge, keeping his outside arm free, and then Dylan Horton does the same thing, pushes and drives this right tackle back into the gap, so it shortens this off. So now he's not able to get outside. Okay, the linebackers see that they have a level 1 path from the back. What does that mean? When you look at the running back, there's 3 different levels. So level 1 is flat across, level 2 is at an angle here, and level 3 would be coming straight down. All that matters on the path of these linebackers. But when they see a level 1 path by the back, he knows that this edge is set. He takes it for a 3-yard loss. And really, you know, the West Virginia was hoping that on 2nd and 10, much like we looked at earlier when the Frogs ran the ball there with 31 seconds to go in the first half, they were trying to do something similar, except they got stuffed for a 3-yard loss, and they flip the field, get the ball punted, and the Frogs take over. But it all started with this defense who really got things going once again in the second half.
You know, Dave, I want to start this one out with my favorite one-liner, if you're going to take it, you better make it. And I think that actually came from you. I'm not sure. I feel like I've heard it before in the studio, but right here is Jamoy Hodge an example of this.
It sure is, and I'm glad that somebody's paying attention.
You're blushing.
Yeah, I know. It's somebody finally paid attention to something I said. That's exciting. But I certainly didn't create that, right? That's been around for a long time, as most things have in coaching. So when you look at Jamoy Hodge here, he definitely takes it. He definitely makes the play for sure. And, you know, he shoots the gap right now. And he's able to do that, though. He comes up with a huge play. As you can see, he comes through, untouched. Let me go back. Let's go to the end zone real quick. And you can see he's looking at this guard right here, West Virginia's right guard. And as soon as he sees his hips go away, he's responsible for him. He should climb. He's looking at the defensive end right at his hip, and he's supposed to say, when he goes this way, I'm going to go up to the linebacker. He doesn't do that. He gets flat. He goes flat and gets lost. Jamoy sees that, and really good instincts here to shoot that right now. He's a heck of an athlete to get there in a hurry. Now, how is he able to do that? It really all, again, fits together. We talked about offense earlier and everyone doing their job. Certainly defensively, you have to be in alignment as well and all on the same page. And so you watched Dylan Horton, who does a phenomenal job setting a strong edge, right? He shoots his hands. He keeps his outside shoulder and outside arm free, okay, so he doesn't get reached, so people don't block on the outside, so this back can get to the outside. Same thing with D. Winters. D. Winters comes over the top, so now this back can't go outside. So when you couple that with Jamoy Hodge shooting the gap, these guys forcing it back in, and Dylan Horton takes his man and closes the gap with that tackle's rear end, essentially. So he squeezes the gap down there. The back can't go outside. He can't cram it in here, so he has no choice but to kind of just stay in no man's land, and Jamoy Hodge comes up with a huge play here.
Absolutely. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up the show just like Jamoy Hodge wrapped up that guy. And that's going to go ahead and do it for our Frogs Today show today. But before we sign off, we got a couple of little things to say. First off, TCU's rankings staying the same, 7. Dave, what do you think about that?
Yeah, there is some SEC bias certainly, throughout the nation. And really the Frogs, what they've been doing all year is just taking care of what they can control, right? Control the controllables. It's cliche, it's coach speak, but it's something they're actually really doing a great job executing. Coach Dykes had commented how he hasn't heard from a single player about anything to do with ranking, bowl games, none of that. He hasn't had a single meeting with his staff where that's even come up. And that's impressive this stage of the year to be 8-0 and not looking ahead. So they're doing a great job going week to week, and it'll all come out in the wash, and they can worry about that stuff at the end of the year.
Absolutely, and it's not like they're not hearing it from outside sources. They just choosing not to respond says a lot about the character of this team and this staff and Tech. Can't say the same for them. There's been a lot of talk lately, and I think some Raider fans were mad about tickets, but we have ADJD to think about that. He's been, toning down on Frog selling tickets to other teams, making sure that there's a lot of purple in that stadium.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff is fandom, and it's fun for the fans, and there's no love lost between these two fan bases for sure. But again, it goes back to making sure they block out all that noise and just worry about what happens on the turf on Saturday. You got Fox big game rolling through, and so they'll get all the national exposure that they deserve, frankly. but they're able to block that out and just worry about the game. So it should be another fun one, another great environment. And yeah, the Tech fans, they can watch it on TV.
Oh, absolutely they can. And just so all my Tech fans out there know, I do remember when TCU scored 82 points on your football team. I was there. Anyways, we have a lot coming up this week, don't we, Dave?
We do. So make sure you stay tuned to frogstoday.com. When you look at the writers, Jeff Wilson, Jamie Plunkett, Melissa Treubwasser, Drew Davidson, there's all kinds of stuff on frogstoday.com. And then your shows as well on our YouTube channel, Frogs Today. Obviously, Dissecting the Frogs here. Make sure that you continue to watch us each week, right? But tomorrow night, there is State of the Frogs, the Coach Sonny Dykes show. Wednesday and Friday, you'll have Frogs Today. And then, of course, our pregame show live from Amon G. Carter Stadium, and the postgame where we have Sonny Dykes on the show, all kinds of players. So you want to make sure you tune in to that as well.
Absolutely. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, especially with your Tech friends. Seems to be the closest they'll get to TCU football this week. And thank you for joining us, Maggie Hale and Dave Beaudin.